You're listening to Beat Autoimmune and Thrive, the podcast all about reversing and preventing autoimmune conditions so you can live your most vibrant life as soon as possible. We talk about autoimmune root causes, actionable solutions, and inspirational healing stories. I'm Palmer Kippola, and I used to have MS. Today, I'm an author, a speaker, a functional medicine certified health coach, a pickleball player, and nature lover who's helped thousands of people reclaim their health and their best lives. Let's dive into this episode. I am delighted to be joined by Dr. Terry Wahls. Dr. Wahls is a clinical professor at the University of Iowa, where she conducts clinical trials testing the efficacy of diet and lifestyle to treat multiple sclerosis. She's the author of the Wahls Protocol, a radical new way to treat all chronic autoimmune conditions using Paleo principles, and the cookbook, the Wahls Protocol for Life, the revolutionary modern Paleo plan to treat all chronic autoimmune conditions. Her powerful TED Talk, Minding Your Mitochondria, has been seen more than 3.5 million times, and I highly recommend watching it. The Wahls Protocol emerged from Dr. Wahls' own quest to treat the debilitating symptoms she experienced as a sufferer of progressive MS. Informed by science, she began using Paleo principles as guidelines for her unique, nutrient-rich plan. Her book shares her astonishing personal story of recovery and details the program with up-to-date research she's now conducting at the University of Iowa. And no other author, I might add, in the health and wellness space conducts clinical research, publishes in peer-reviewed scientific journals, or is building the scientific research that will change the standard of care on chronic diseases and neurological patients. Dr. Wahls is an inspiration and hero to many people who are dealing with autoimmune and other complex chronic health challenges. Now, while I personally did not benefit from her guidance in my own MS reversal, I've had the pleasure of spending time with her at several terrific conferences. She was gracious to contribute her powerful healing story in my own book, Beat Autoimmune. I view her as a mentor on the path, and I'm so glad to call her a friend. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you for having me.
It is just a delight and an honor, and I'm so glad that we could spend this time together. You're a woman on a big mission to not only help people reclaim their lives, as if that's not enough, you're on a mission to change medicine to shift the very standard of care for the autoimmune patient, and we are all so grateful.
Absolutely.
So I'm a huge believer in starting with story. And to do that, maybe you can walk us through the timeline of your journey with the emphasis on areas that you think may have set the stage for your MS to appear from the time you were young, growing up on the farm in Iowa. And I'll just do some color commentary or ask questions along the way. Sound good?
Sure. So, in retrospect, my symptoms began 40 years ago with zingers right here at my temple. They would eventually become electrical, more frequent, more severe as I continued through medical school, launched my career. Then in 20 years later, in 2000, I developed weakness in my left leg and underwent the big diagnosis and was diagnosed with MS at that time. I saw the best people, took the newest drugs. And within 3 years, I'm in the tilt-recline wheelchair. I take mitoxantrone, Tysabri, Cellcept, nothing helps. I get a tilt-recline wheelchair, but that's when I begin reading the basic science and begin experimenting. I discover, and it slows my decline. Then I discover electrical stimulation of muscles. I add that to my regimen. I'm slowly a little bit better. I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine. I take their course on neuroprotection. I've already discovered the ancestral health movement. I've been on a paleo diet for 5 years. And then I have a really big aha, like what if I redesign my paleo diet based on what I've been reading on the basic science and on functional medicine. And to my amazement, I start getting stronger. I can sit up at my desk again. My electrical face pain, the trigeminal neuralgia are gone. And then again, my physical therapist is amazed. I'm getting stronger. He's advancing my exercise program, and I am walking again. And then, 6 months later, I'm on my bike for the first time in 6 years, and I am biking. And of course, this really changes how I think about disease and health. It changes the way I practice medicine. It changes the focus of my research. And I started doing clinical trials. And consistently, we have favorable results. And I ultimately get the Linus Pauling Award for my groundbreaking clinical research, patient care protocols. And now, we really have touched the lives of millions. And I'm committed to teaching clinicians how to use these concepts and to teaching the public how to implement these concepts as well.
Wow. You have just taken us on a journey. It's like this speed reading cliff notes of your life's experience. And it sounds like it's just been a breeze. And I don't mean that in any way, except the way that you've just described it. It condenses how many years? I mean, this is...
Well, 40 years, really.
40 years, really. Okay. So, but even leading up to that, because you and I have talked about this and in your story, if we look back at a timeline in a functional medicine context, things start sometimes in utero before we're born, right?
So where it all began.
So where did it all begin? I'd like you to take us back in retrospect. Hindsight is 2020,
sure,
right?
Sure.
And people view you as an icon of healing with food. But I have, an inside look into this. And I know that on that farm, your dad may have been using some chemicals. So.
Yeah, sure. So let's go. We know that for every autoimmune condition, whether it's MS or lupus or RA, there are about 200 different genes that increase your risk. And each gene, maybe a little bit, 1%, 2%. And so let's say we know that I've had a number of genes that put me at higher risk. But the most people with those genes never get their MS or autoimmune condition. So it's the interplay between the genes that you have and all of your exposures.
That's right.
So in my case, what happened? I was born vaginally. That was good. So I got a great first start. But I was given formula instead of breast milk. So the breast milk helps set your microbiome. So I missed that. Then I had several bouts of strep infection, early ear infections. I was given several rounds of antibiotics before the age of 3. Disrupts the microbiome. And you're more likely to have candida overgrowth, increases the risk of leaky gut. Food proteins get from the inside of the intestine to the bloodstream, where my immune cells react. And so it reacts to my genetic vulnerability to food sensitivities. Mm-hmm. I got triggered. I start developing sensitivity now, we know, to gluten and casein and egg proteins. And so sometime during adolescence, I probably had overt food sensitivity, abnormal immune response to gluten, casein. We don't know when the egg sensitivity developed, but sometime in there. And during that time, I started having trouble with asthma. And I had really painful periods. So probably endometriosis. And growing up on a farm, it was a conventional farm. We had pesticides. We had a private well in Iowa. Nearly all of the private wells are contaminated with atrazine. So, I'm exposed to a variety of chemicals. I'm an artist before I'm a physician. So I'm doing oil painting. Oil paint pigments use a lot of heavy metals, yes. Cadmium, lead, mercury. And so I'm exposed to those things. I do metallurgy. I'm exposed to lead in solder. I go, but I'm outside. There's plenty of vitamin D, plenty of exercise, lots of fresh air. We grow our own vegetables organically. At least the vegetables were organic, and so a lot's right. I'm in taking care of the livestock, so a lot of microbiome exposure. So that's right. So there's a lot of that's going on that's very health promoting. I go off to college in art, more heavy metals,
Mhm.
I enter medical school, more stress, more sleep deprivation, not enough sunlight, so low vitamin D. And I'm thrilled to be in gross anatomy. And so I have a huge, probably 3 times the amount of formaldehyde exposure compared to my cohort, my colleagues, because I'm going back to the gross lab, making all these beautiful sketches of the cadavers. Is just thrilling. And then we go to clinicals, more stress, less sleep, less vitamin D. And that's when my trigeminal neuralgia begins.
And explain to our viewers the trigeminal neuralgia. You call it the zingers that you get on your face.
Oh, yeah.
Bad stuff.
So they start here, mostly on the right, occasionally on the left. It feels like, if you can imagine a cattle prod being poked right here, you get a jolt of electrical current coming down your face to your jaw. Lasts just for a moment, comes on randomly. The episodes become steadily more frequent, more severe, more intense, and then gradually fade. And it's clear that they're more likely to happen if I'm sleep deprived or stressed. And so they happen more frequently during medical school, during residency, during my first years of professional practice. And I see neurologists, I see pain services. We try a variety of medications. I get drug rashes, can't tolerate any of them, and realize, like, okay, I'm just gonna have to tough this out when they come. And when they turn on, I would involuntarily grimace, grunt. If it was severe enough, I might, utter. I would. It was difficult. Then 20 years of that, getting gradually worse. And again, more stress. I have accepted the dogma of low fat, and as a vegetarian, vegan, low fat diet, plenty of vegetables, plenty of rice, beans,
whole grains,
lots of bread, wheat, rye, barley. And I had dairy, yogurts, and kefirs, some low-fat cheese. And of course, no, I didn't see any obvious triggers other than stress to my face pains.
Right. And at this time, you're a doctor, right? At this point, you graduated medical school?
I've graduated medical school, and I certainly believe, in the low-fat hypothesis. It was part of my exam, part of my training. And, the low-fat vegetarian vegan diet was presumably, a really great diet. And I had a family history, put me at risk for heart disease. So that made a lot of sense. Then I developed leg weakness, get the big evaluation, MS. So you're familiar with the SWANK diet, low-fat diet, go down that path, rapid worsening. My physicians told me about the paleo diet. I read Cordain's books, his papers. So like, okay, this makes sense. And I reintroduced meat.
That's a big deal. I just want to acknowledge that was a very big deal. And the fact that your doctors recommended the paleo diet. At this point, they had kind of given up because medications.
Well,
right?
I was being as aggressive as I could be with meds.
Right.
I was taking mitochondrial infusions, and I took tizabri infusions, and then I took Cellcept. And mind you, we're being as aggressive as possible, but I clearly wasn't getting better. My face pain was clearly getting worse, and it was very clear I'm on track to be bedridden, demented, and possibly intractable pain. When my pains turned on, touch, light, sound triggers the pain. And so my fear was it would be permanently on, that I would never be able to get it turned off again.
Yeah.
And that was, certainly a very troubling concern. And so in '07, I'm reading the basic science. I'm experimenting with supplements around my mitochondria. I think mitochondrial function is key for brain function and key part of neurodegeneration. And so I really focused on what I could do to resuscitate my mitochondria using, B vitamins, CoQ, lipoic acid, creatine. And I discovered the studies using electrical stimulation of muscles. I added that to my regimen, working closely with a physical therapist. Discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine, took their course on neuroprotection. They had a longer list of supplements, which I added. Mm-hmm. And then I had this really brilliant aha. What if I redesigned my paleo diet based on the science that I've been reading? And really what I was doing is combining ancestral health, basic science that I'd been reading, and functional medicine. So that's a couple more months of intensive research. Now, what are the foods that stress these nutrients I was taking in supplement form? So finally get my diet redesigned. I have a list of foodstuffs that I'm going to be eating. And I start this new way of eating. And it's shocking, really, because it's surprisingly quick. How quickly my fatigue is gone, my mental clarity improves, and the pain turns off. And then, so that was in about 6 weeks. It was very clear fatigue, mood, pain, remarkable difference. And then my physical therapist, who I've been seeing a couple times a week, says, Terry, you're definitely getting stronger. And he advances my exercises, has me start lifting weights. And then we do that. And in a couple more months, I stun my colleagues at the hospital and I remember this day so remarkably. I had a letter to mail, and I just thought, I'm feeling really pretty good. I'm going to walk down the hall as opposed to taking my wheelchair down the hall. And so I'm walking down the hall. I put the letter in my pocket. And now this first walk I'm doing with walking sticks. But mind you, people haven't seen me walking in the hall for years, 4 to be exact. And so my colleagues like, oh my God, Dr. Wahls, what happened? You're walking. And so that was really quite remarkable. And 3 months after that, I'm walking the neighborhood around the block, and I decide that I want to try biking. And my wife's, she says, well, if things keep going well, maybe this fall we can try biking. And 2 weeks later, we have this emergency family meeting because I'm determined I am going to try biking. And in fact, I am able to bike, bike around the block. My kids are crying. I'm crying. And that fundamentally changes how I think about disease and health. And it changes the way I practice medicine. And it will ultimately change the focus of my research.
It's just so remarkable. And I know it doesn't even begin to do it justice in a small interview like this, the profound pain that you're in. And the fact that you tried the paleo diet, and I want to be really clear because I understand that you tried it for 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
And did not have this experience just on
correct.
A regular paleo diet. So I want to be clear. But the reason this is important, and I really want to emphasize is that a lot of people think, well, it didn't work for me, so therefore I'm going to stop it and go back to eating gluten, dairy, and eggs. And I really want to underscore the fact that you turbocharged the paleo diet.
Correct. And the other thing I want to point out to people is, so I added supplements for the mitochondria. That was not enough. I did functional medicine with supplements. That was not enough. I did the paleo diet plus supplements. That was not enough. I did esteemed plus the paleo diet plus supplements. That was not enough. I redesigned my paleo diet. I added meditation. I looked very carefully at everything that I could with my self-care routine. Mm. And I did all of that, not to get better, because I knew recovery was not possible. All of my physicians had said, you've got progressive MS, functions once lost are gone forever. So we got to stop. We got to keep you from losing more function. So I was doing everything. I kept adding everything, not to get better, because I knew recovery was not possible. I did all that to slow my decline. And the other thing that's remarkable is, so I am remarkably better. I don't have pain for the first time in years. My thinking is more clear. I have more energy. I'm walking again for the first time really in years. But as part of having a neurodegenerative process, we learn to let go of the future and take each day as it unfolds, which I had done, which is very important to coping with a progressive illness. So I didn't know what any of this stuff meant. I'm able to walk around the block for the first time in 4 years, and I really don't know what it means. It wasn't until I biked around the block, I'm like, okay, who knows how much recovery might be possible? That the current understanding of multiple sclerosis, of progressive MS, of secondary progressive MS, primary progressive MS, relapse remitting MS, all of that is incomplete. And now clearly, I've continued to get stronger, get healthier, and replicate my experience in others with a wide variety of disease states. It's not just MS.
Yeah. Parkinson's. Tell us about other diseases.
Well, so let's start with the other autoimmune conditions. And literally there are 25 million autoimmune people who are diagnosed, and there's 75 million who have autoantibodies and don't have a clear diagnosis yet, but often have pain, fatigue, mental health problems, and autoantibodies. We, again, have seen people in my clinics, in my followers, who have either an autoimmune diagnosis or unexplained symptoms, typically pain, fatigue, mental health symptoms, and autoantibodies, who we put on our program and experience more energy, less pain, better mental clarity, better moods, and often reduction of their autoantibodies, improvements of their function, and they're able to reduce their prescription doses, simplify their medications, often be able to reduce and even eliminate many of their prescription meds. And we had such success at the VA that the VA chief of medicine and the chief of staff pulled me out of primary care so we could establish the therapeutic lifestyle clinic where we used my concepts in others with great success.
It's just remarkable. And what makes it even more powerful is that you are a classically trained conventional physician who originally, but going back, you didn't believe in the woo-woo.
I thought it was hooey. Yeah, right. I thought it was hooey.
Right. Very. So in one way, one can look back and consider things to be gifts because your experience, I view as a gift. My experience, what I went through, the 26 years of relapsing remitting MS with no internet at the time when I was diagnosed at 19 in 1984. No internet, but the swank diet in the public library. So there was no pathway. So I just want to say that we are so grateful to you for having gone through the pain, as we say, the pain to purpose, right?
Yeah. And even now, the trigeminal neuralgia, the terrible, terrible pain that caused, is this tremendous gift, because now I realize I have this very sensitive biosensor that tells me the level of inflammation in my brain, in my spinal cord, and probably in my bloodstream really very well. So if my environment deteriorates because of excessive stress, toxins, or an infection, if I get a viral infection, a fever, my face pain will turn on.
Yeah.
And so whenever that happens, I sit down like, okay, what was the trigger? And my wife and I will have a conversation like, okay, what do we think the trigger was? And what can I do about that? And then I also look at, okay, how's my self-care routine? Am I slacking off? Do I need to do a little better job?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things that we teach in my somewhere in my programs to help people identify what are your biosensors? How can you monitor your physiology, your level of inflammation? And people who have pain, we have it the easiest because that's very handy. If you happen to have a skin problem, that's handy because then you can look at your skin like, okay, now my psoriasis is bad, so there's a problem. But if sensory disturbance is helpful, if it's a mental health issue, that's a little tougher because we don't always have as good of insight into our mental health. Motor functions can be difficult because those will not come back as quickly. And so that can be helpful, but it's not as easy as dealing with pain. Pain is the most sensitive and it can correct the most quickly. Skin takes longer to correct. Motor takes longer to correct. And so I let people know who have pain that as difficult as that is, it is a very helpful biosensor for improving.
Absolutely. I love it. It's thank you to the symptom and then dig deeper because that's the invitation. So let us dig into your protocol. I'd love to just recap what's in it because it is so nutrient dense and people who aren't familiar with it, they need to know. And then I'd like to go into a little bit. Are you still doing what you set out to do those years ago?
Let me hold up my baby for a moment. We revised the book. So you have the original paperback on your shelf. This is the new version. So pick up the new version with the blue banner because that'll tell you what we're doing presently. I think a very important step is improving diet quality. Now, if you're vegetarian or vegan for your spiritual beliefs, I do have guidance for those people. If you're open to eating meat, I have guidance for the meat eater. And if you have a reason to be a ketogenic eater, we have guidance for you on that basis. And I want you to think about two categories of food. One is the food to remove, and the other is the food to add. The things to remove are added sugars, very inflammatory, and work on reducing the processed and fast foods, and replace them with more non-starchy vegetables, berries, and a good source of protein. Now, in terms of the vegetables, I classify them into green leafy vegetables like kale, Swiss chard, spinach, lettuce, parsley. And then the sulfur-rich vegetables, cabbage, onion, mushroom family, and deeply pigmented things like beets, carrots, berries. And the goal is to have, and keep in mind, I'm a tall lady, 6 foot tall, so 9 cups of vegetables measured raw. If you're a petite lady, and we have folks in our clinical trial who are only 4'8", so they are not eating 9 cups of vegetables. So again, it'd be proportionately less. And then we need to have sufficient protein. And again, we have a different plan for the meat eaters and for the vegetarians. So step one is really ramping up the non-starchy vegetables and berries. And then in terms of things that I want to, the other things to remove, commonly gluten sensitivity, casein sensitivity, and egg sensitivity may play an important role in your disease. So I tell people that to remove gluten, casein, and dairy, and eggs meticulously, so we can see, is that a problem for you or not? And there's a huge biologic difference between doing this 100% and doing it 95%. If you're still having it occasionally, you're still keeping the inflammation molecules up, increased in your bloodstream and in your brain, and you won't be able to tell if you could get a reduction of symptoms by removing those foods.
That is such an important point. I just want to underscore, this is not a sometimes diet. This is 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I will ask, is there a time, do you believe that everyone, I see, about 80% of my clients are sensitive to eggs? I don't see 100%.
No, it's certainly not 100%. And eggs have a lot of great nutrition in them. So if you can tolerate eggs, then yes, I would love to have you eat eggs. If I eat eggs, I'm incapacitated by pain. So I'm not going to eat eggs. But I have people take the eggs out, ideally for 3 months, but you could at least a month, and then try adding the yolks back. If you tolerate the yolks, great nutrition, have them. And then if you tolerate the yolks, the next week you can try adding the white. And if you tolerate that, by all means, have the eggs, because they do have a lot of really, really great nutrition.
Yeah.
But if your symptoms come back, then you're one of those folks who do not do well with eggs.
Yeah. And it's a great, great point. Now, you have some other very specific parts to your protocol, which includes the addition of organ meats, which a lot of people are not only unfamiliar with, they may have an aversion to. So I had a particular question on this because I wondered, is there a way to bypass eating it? Could we freeze it, cut it up into little pieces and swallow it? Talk to us about.
So there are lots of things. The first one is, it's incredibly delicious. Prepared correctly, it's some of the favorite foods that our ancestors had that we have. When I serve this to my kids and their friends, they love organ meats the way we prepare them. So they certainly can be delicious. You could also have organ meat capsules. We have them on our website. So there are options that way.
Got it.
You want to look for a good supplier to be sure that it's healthy animals, preferably organically grown. That would be helpful. And then think about the various sources of organ meats. Oysters, mussels, clams, those are organ meats as well. Anytime you have the entire animal, like a whole sardine, we have the whole sardine, that would be organ meat as well. And furthermore, when we have only muscle meat, that gives us an imbalanced methionine glycine ratio. And so having more organ meat, having more bone broth will help ensure that we have a balanced amino acid ratios.
I love that. And then you add iodine with seaweed or algae, correct?
Correct. Now, if we're low on iodine, our immune cells will not do nearly as effective a job of protecting us from infection or from cancers. And we'll be at a higher rate for autoimmune thyroid disease. If we are overloaded on iodine, we have a higher rate of autoimmune thyroid disease. But we also have a lower rate of infections and of cancers.
Yeah.
So replacing, if you have thyroid disease, you have to work closely with your physician about reintroducing seaweed and iodine.
That makes perfect sense. So do you have anything else you would like to say on diet? Because I'd love to touch on the supplements that you strongly encourage people to be. They're supplements. They're not a replacement for. We're talking about a nourishing paleo diet coupled with supplements for most people.
And I want to remind people that we have such a desire to keep eating terrible foods for us, engage in health-destroying habits, sedentary lifestyle, and have a magic pill let us have these terrible foods and a sedentary lifestyle. That will not create health. Yeah. So supplements may accelerate your healing But you still have to address your diet. You still have to address self-care routines. Most of us are going to be low in our vitamin D. Our ancestors lived and worked outside 24/7, 365 days a year. Most of us wear clothes and work and recreate much of the day inside. So we're going to be low on our vitamin D. You have two choices: go outside and get a tan, or take supplements. And you'll have to decide clinically which is the better strategy for you to use. If you use supplements, be sure that you monitor your blood levels so you don't overshoot.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anything besides D? Are you a fan of the omega-3s, alpha lipoic acid?
So in my book, I walk through the various supplements that I think about and the questions that I run through my head as I sort out, would this person benefit from omega-3? Would they benefit from a sulfur-containing amino acids and B vitamins? And so I like to monitor the homocysteine level to guide, do we need additional B vitamins or not, and which B vitamins? I like to think about ensuring adequate omega-3s. And so that ideally we're able to do this with grass-fed, grass-finished meats and wild fish, and a modest level of omega-3 supplements. Additional targeted supplements, particularly as we think about the coronavirus, I would probably think about vitamin C and zinc at least. And then other targeted supplements depend on the person's other health issues and their background.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. How about meal timing? I mean, this is coming to be super important in healing, this concept of hormesis, right?
Hormesis, yes.
So can you talk to us about this and let us know?
Hormesis is a period of stress, mild to moderate stress, followed by sufficient recovery time for your cells to repair whatever damage was caused by that mild to moderate stress. And our ancestors, we had stress with temperature, stress with exercise, stress with adequate food, absence of food, and we would have had stress with a variety of phytonutrients, plants, tremendous amount of diversity in the plants. Now, because our brains are wired to crave salt, sugar, fat, sex, inactivity, and pleasure, and we're very good at communicating, very good at cooperating and competing. So over thousands of years, we've created businesses, and our businesses are really good at making products that help us meet those biologic desires that we have for pleasure, for comfort, for salt, sugar, sex, fat. What that means is you and I live in a very comfortable home. We sit on very comfortable chairs. We live in an environment that is temperature controlled. We have food available all the time. We don't have to be hungry if we don't feel like it. Turns out that is really bad for our physiology. If we have intermittent stress, it's a really good thing. So hormesis is mild intermittent stress followed by a recovery period. Food and absence of food is a very nice way of getting some hormetic stress. So you could add in time-restricted feeding. So I get all of my calories in a 12-hour window and then don't eat for 12 hours. And then over time, as I'm interested and open to doing so, I could narrow the number of hours with which I would normally eat. So instead of eating a 12-hour window, maybe I'm going to eat in an 8-hour window or a 6-hour window or a 2-hour window or every other day. And there are a variety of eating strategies around that pattern. And it's called time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting being eating every other day. Excuse me. And then you could also do a periodic fast where you might not eat for 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, followed by a refeed where you eat sufficient calories and protein to restore all of the nutrients that are required for optimal functioning. And we have the similar principles for exercise, followed by recovery, for temperature, some cold exposure, some heat exposure, followed by recovery.
Yeah. When we talk about hormesis, it's kind of like a little bit of stress is good for us, but too much stress is bad. And another place that this applies is sunshine, right? I mean, a
Correct.
little bit of sunshine, good stuff, a lot, and we get too much radiation. So we can think about this in a lot of different contexts of our life. I think you hit it on the head exactly when you talked about we live in comfortable places, and who wants to be uncomfortable? We have to train ourselves to get out of the comfort zone, right? I took a cold shower before getting on this interview with you. Not my favorite thing to do, but I've gotten used to that. So
Correct.
That's something that we can build to, right?
We can build to it. And you can build to it at the pace that you want to experience. And so that cold shower, you can start with a warm shower, like most of us do, and decide you're going to end with cold water. And then over time, you can gradually lengthen the time that you spend in the cold shower with a goal originally of like, okay, maybe over the next work up to have a 2-minute cold shower at the end. And maybe then when I'm comfortable with that, I could decide that I'll just switch to a cold shower and I will not use the warm water for my showers. It's a process, but we can make this transition at the speed that works for us.
Yes. And I think, as we get close to the end of our time together, I really would love to step back and have you opine on the situation of autoimmunity. I mean, this is, as I write about, a mismatch disease. We are living out of sync with our ancestral rhythms. Our DNA is not matched to this process convenient lifestyle that we're living in. So how can we get back to that, a modern day cave woman kind of life without having to go be a cave woman, if you see what I'm saying?
Gradually, area by area, begin to get more effectively aligned. Get your day-night cycle appropriately aligned. Maintain some social connectivity. Have hormesis with temperature. Have hormesis with exercise. And if you're so inclined to do everything all at once, go for it. Most of us will do better one new skill at a time. Get comfortable with that, and then add the next new skill. And depending on your health challenges, you'll sort out at what pace you can begin to make these changes. I've been at this, really pretty intensely since diagnosis in 2000. Very intensely since 2004, when I'm like, okay, it's up to me to figure this out. And I continue to refine and learn and grow. And I plan on living to 120, maybe 150 if things go really well. And I plan on keep learning and growing and refining that whole time. So you're never going to be fully there. Hopefully you'll continue to learn, to refine, and to think deeply about what you can do to have some of these better self-care routines in your life.
So beautiful. And it makes me think of one last thing, that you having a big, hairy, audacious goal, like living to 120. Would you invite people to consider big missions,
Absolutely.
big visions for their lives? What are they doing this for?
Absolutely. You want to know why are you doing this? What would you like to have happen? Another thing I encourage people to do is, if your health could moderately improve, how would you celebrate with your family and some sort of physical task? What could you do? That would be a lovely aspirational goal then for you and your family.
So beautiful. Well, I am so delighted that you joined us today. You are truly the modern day hunter-gatherer leader paving this path back to vibrant health for us all. And yours is a story of resilience, courage, and determination. And I just want to emphasize that these are not stories that are isolated to you or to me. Anybody who has the tenacity, the desire for creating health, a life they love, can experience this
Absolutely.
vibrancy. So I want, it's both miraculous, the story that you've had, but it's also available to anybody. Is that how you would you corroborate
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We see that over and over again.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, I understand that you've got a 5-day challenge coming up for people with autoimmune conditions. So can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
So 5-day challenge, you sign up at terrywalls.com/5-day challenge. Be sure and confirm your email. You'll get a lesson in the morning, and then we invite you to take some actions. In the evening, we'll have a longer conversation about that lesson. You'll hear from some other folks who have implemented those concepts and how it's transformed their lives as well. This goes through 5 days. We've touched the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Learn how to take charge of their lives and redirect their healing. Is really lots and lots of fun and very life-changing.
Magnificent. So again, terrywalls.com/5-day challenge. Just so that we're clear on dates, is that starting March 29?
March 29th. Starts Monday morning. You'll get your first lesson with a prompt to do some work during the day. And then in the evening, we will go through the lesson and you'll get a little bit more teaching.
I love it. It's just been such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for being so inspirational and courageous and leading us in this journey to vibrant health. Terry, thank you so much.
Thank you. Much love to you and your tribe.
Much love to you too. Take good care. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and if you feel inspired, please leave a quick review so other people can find it too. Now, if you want to beat autoimmune and thrive, make sure you sign up for my free video training at freeautoimmunetraining.com. That's freeautoimmunetraining.com and watch the first video right away. Take good care. Bye for now.